She pointed the pistol at my son and screamed, "Hands where I can see them!" And for a second the whole block froze like someone had hit pause. The man in the cheap uniform stood stiff beside her, badge glinting, voice shaking as he barked orders that sounded more like a stage line than a cop's. My boy, just back from what I thought was a quiet semester, had his palms up, eyes steady, but there was a tiny scar at his jaw and a faded patch barely visible on his jacket that read SF. Karen barked, "He tried to hit me, he threatened me," and shoved a printed HOA complaint in the man's hand as if paper could turn a gun into truth. I stepped between them, bare feet on the gravel, and said slow so everyone could hear, "You don't get to point a gun at my family on your say-so." Neighbors started filming. A kid 2 houses down hit record with wide eyes. The fake officer swallowed, a sweat on his lip, and for the first time I noticed the cheap radio clipped to his belt. No county seal, just a logo from a private security company. My son didn't move a muscle. He just watched Karen like he'd been waiting for her to make that exact mistake. Then, almost too quiet to be heard, he said 4 words that dropped into the air and hung there. "You picked the wrong target." The street held its breath, and something behind his calm promised this would not end the way Karen expected. Karen smirked like she had won, shouting loud enough for every porch light on the street to flicker on. "He's dangerous! Arrest him now or you'll regret it!" The fake cop's hand trembled on the pistol grip, his eyes darting to the phones recording from both sides of the street. My son finally moved, slow, deliberate, lowering his hands just enough to show the badge tucked in his wallet. Not some plastic HOA ID, but a small, worn federal credential. The fake cop blinked. "What is that?" My son's voice was steady, cold. "It's the reason you're about 10 seconds away from losing more than your job." He shifted his weight just slightly, and I swear the whole street felt the change in the air. Karen scoffed, but her laugh cracked. "Nice trick. That's fake. He's a criminal, and I'll make sure he never—" Blue lights cut her off. A real sheriff's cruiser slid up behind them, headlights washing the scene. 2 deputies stepped out, hands already on their holsters. The fake cop froze. One deputy barked, "Drop the weapon, now!" Phones zoomed in, neighbors gasped, and for the first time Karen looked like she wasn't in control. She turned toward the sheriff and screamed, "He's the threat, not me!" But my son didn't flinch. He just whispered, 42 seconds. That's how long the real law took to get here. And in that silence, the fake cop's hand finally let go of the gun. The pistol clattered against the pavement, and the deputies moved in fast, kicking it away as they pinned the fake cop against his own car. His cheap badge snapped clean off when one deputy yanked it from his chest. Karen lunged forward, grabbing at the paper she had shoved in his hand earlier. "No, you don't understand. He was helping me. He was following HOA rules." The sheriff himself stepped out now, big frame backlit by the cruiser lights. He looked at Karen like a teacher staring down a lying student. "Karen, HOA rules don't come with guns, and they certain don't come with rented uniforms." Neighbors murmured, phones caught every second, and Karen's face went red as she stammered, "But he was doing his job. I told him my life was in danger." My son finally stepped forward, calm as ever, voice carrying just enough for the cameras. "She made a false police call, hired a private guard to impersonate an officer, and then pointed a weapon at an unarmed citizen. That's 3 felonies in under a minute." The sheriff gave him a long look, then nodded once, like he already knew exactly who my son was. Karen's jaw dropped. "Wait, how would you even know that? Who are you?" My son held her gaze, steady, unblinking. "Special Forces, which means I don't scare easy, and I don't forget faces." For the first time all night, Karen had nothing to say.
Karen tried to laugh it off, but her voice cracked in front of the cameras. "Special Forces? Please, that's just some story he cooked up." But before she could finish, the sheriff turned to my son and said in front of everyone, "Captain, you want to file the charges yourself, or should we?" The street went dead silent. Phones wobbled in shaky hands as neighbors zoomed in on Karen's face, her smirk collapsing like wet paper. She stumbled back, stuttering, "Captain? Wait, he's lying, right? This is a setup." But no one believed her now. The fake cop was shoved into the back of the cruiser, head ducked low. One deputy read him his rights, while the other pulled the HOA papers out of Karen's trembling hands. "Ma'am, these aren't legal notices," the deputy said flatly. "They're just printed flyers." The camera flash from across the street caught her red face, her lips twitching like she was trying to form an excuse, but nothing came out. My son finally turned to me, voice low but firm. "Dad, she crossed a line tonight. This isn't just harassment anymore, this is federal." The sheriff gave him a slow nod. "And it's all on video." Karen's shoulders sagged as if the weight of the entire neighborhood had just fallen on her. But even cornered, she muttered under her breath, "This isn't over." And I knew she meant it. The deputies led Karen toward the cruiser, but she twisted in their grip, shouting at the neighbors filming her. "You think this is justice? You'll all regret siding with him. The HOA owns this street, not him." Her voice cracked, half rage, half desperation. The sheriff just shook his head. "The HOA doesn't own squat. Property rights are state law, and tonight you broke every one of them." My son didn't say a word, just slipped the folded credential back into his pocket. He looked tired but steady, like a man who had seen worse than this and knew how it would end. Karen's screams grew smaller as the door slammed shut, sirens humming low as the cruiser rolled away. The neighbors lingered, whispering, some patting me on the shoulder, others nodding to my son with new respect. One man muttered, "We thought she ran this block. Guess we were wrong." Another added, "About time someone stood up to her." I glanced at my son, but he just shrugged, almost like it was routine. Then he finally said, loud enough for the camera still rolling, "I didn't fight for this country just to have a fake cop point a gun at me in my own driveway." That line hit harder than any siren. People went quiet, phones lowered, and even the sheriff gave a small nod of approval. For the first time in months, the street felt like ours again, not Karen's battlefield. And in the silence, my son's dog tags clinked softly against his chest, a sound that promised this war was over, at least for tonight.